everyone, I'm Faye Yong, the artist of The Merchant of Venice, part of the Manga Shakespeare series. The Merchant of Venice is sort of like a few separate stories about different relationships that are all interlinked. So basically it can be divided into two, where there's this love story between Bassanio and Portia, and with it comes the whole story about Portia and her suitors and the three boxers that's very famous. And then there's, on the other side, there's Antonio versus Shylock and their like age-old, not say enemyship, enmity with each other, and it's linked together by the fact that Bassanio and Antonio are the best of friends, and it's Bassanio's quest to win Portia's love that causes Antonio to fall into the hands of Shylock, and then there's lots of love and angst and drama and lots of things about like friendship tested, finding true love and filial duty, or in this case when Shylock's daughter runs away from him, is a daughter abandoning her father. So it's like lots of soap opera and drama. Okay, for the setting, first off I started off by finding out like what other settings have been used in all the previous Manga Shakespeare stories, as not to, you know, have something too similar. Then after that, I was a bit stumped. It was like sci-fi, fantasy, modern day, and most of it was inspired actually by Emma Vicelli's comment that she went to Venice for her wedding and it was like being in an RPG. So I was like, well, actually a fantasy setting, you know, would work really well for Venice, because if you look at the architecture and the canals, the gondolas, it's all very like old school, very magical actually, very romantic. So a fantasy setting was like just about right, I think. Well, because it was a fantasy setting and like the main people were all like elves, so I was like, since in the story the suitors are like people from different countries, faraway lands, so I was like, it's a fantasy setting, why not, like, you know, ham it up, like go all the way. So the Prince of Morocco was inspired by like troll design, like trolls and goblins, you know, the long noses, particularly because Morocco, somewhere in the Middle East, like lots of Bedouini, you know, big poofy costumes and big noses and things like that. And the Prince of Aragon, I believe he's Spanish, or in the movie he was portrayed as being Spanish, so I was quite inspired by the whole, like, you know, frills, and he was like very, in the script he comes across as being very vain and very self-centered, so I gave him like a merman appearance with long flowy hair so they can, like, you know, push his hands. I'm beautiful, so I need someone hot to go with me. It was quite hard to come up with something that would portray like the Christian and Jew thing without, you know, pigeonholing one as a bad guy and one as a good guy. So in a way I thought the elven setting was quite interesting and quite apt, because in like traditional elven lore there's always like the sun elves or the high elves who are like worshipping the sun, and then there's like the dark elves who like worship the moon. So technically it's neither side are good elves or evil elves, it's just that they worship different things or they have a different set of culture, but they're ultimately elves, which is like the same thing, Christian, Jew, but ultimately we're all humans. So I thought it would be great to actually put Shylock and, well, the Jews in the form of like dark elves, because if you've seen like most games like World of Warcraft or any sort of fantasy games, like the dark elves are always like dark, you know, they wear night looking clothes. And one of the most amusing things I joked about when designing Shylock was he's a little bit like goth. Someone said he looks like Alice Cooper. And the thing with goths or anyone in the alternative scene, or they're always like, you know, dark clothes, eyeliner, and the thing that we think of is when you see people like that, it's like, oh, they must be a little bit odd, possibly dangerous. And that was what I thought was interesting in this sense. Like the Christians had a thing against the Jews because they're different, and maybe I'm thinking a little bit too deep about it, but that was what I thought about when I was designing Shylock. I originally came from Malaysia, and back then, even then, I was a big like manga anime fan. So I came here to the UK to do a degree in illustration, and it was when I was here that I met the people from Sweatdrop Studios, which I'm now a part of, and through them somehow I was introduced to the editors at Self Made Hero, showed them my portfolio, shoved it in their faces, and that's how pretty much I broke through. And on the other side, I also self-published my own comic work with Sweatdrop Studios, and I've been in their anthologies. I have my own, my first graphic novel, in fact, was Murphy's Law, which is published by them, and it's very much you meet people and then they introduce you to other people, and other people you meet introduce you to other people, and that's how you pretty much can get into the comic industry. I approached Self Made Hero, who are the publishers of the Manga Shakespeare series, and so I got signed on to do The Merchant of Venice. So the person who edits the script, and he's Richard Opinionese, and so instead of putting the entire like Shakespeare script in it, which would end up in a huge book, it's abridged so that it's still in the original like old English Shakespearean thing, but it's not all of it. But you get the gist of the story, which is very good. And so what I do is I get the script from Richard, and I work on thumbnails, which pretty much shows like, you know, this goes there, what background, who's talking, the angles, and I send it off to my editors, and they vet whether, oh, this is fine, or we don't agree with that, we want to change things. And once the green light got given, I move on to finishing the pages, inking them, toning them, and sending them off for printing. I think I can speak for many, or at least the few Manga Shakespeare artists that I know, is that whenever we get a comic book project, we all turn into hermits. Like Nana Lee and myself, Nana Lee drew 12th Night, and we were living in the same house, but we hardly saw each other, except for coffee breaks. So I work digitally, so I spend all of my time in front of the PC. Other than every now and then I get to thumbnail or pencil pages in an actual sketchbook, but most of the time I work with a PC, and it's a little bit like this giant cram course in English literature, but a lot more fun. A lot of people ask this actually. I use a Wacom Intuos 3, which is, in my opinion, Wacom is one of the best tablets out there. And a regular PC. I pencil things in Photoshop, and I ink and tone and do the rest of it in a specialist software called Manga Studio. Coming soon to a bookstore near you, so it's if you have heard of the Manga Shakespeare series, you have to add it to your family.